Hello, my Logic friends. Happy Sunday. We're back. We're back, baby, as they say. I don't usually say that, but I just did. Hello, everyone. We have quite the crowd already, and we have a whole lot of signups, by the way. This is great. Let's see. We have Michael Landon in the chat. We have Johnny Fagan, Renee Tin, Brooks, Anon. Oh, look at all this. This is a big list of people. Hello, everyone. This is our first Logic Live back after IBC. So excited to be here. We have, I say it every week, but we have a hell of a show. This is a pretty good show, I have to say. And the list just keeps going. I can't keep up with all the names. Nick Smith, George, Chris, Jacob, hello. And there's our transition. That was for Randy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Logic Live, episode number 151, which is a very large number. Happy to see you all here. I have just one quick little announcement-y thing before we dive into the meat of the episode. So let's look at that. What is this? What is this? IBC 2025. This is our first, I just mentioned it, our first Logic Live after IBC. And I just had to do a little, what would we call it, like a victory lap to celebrate. What a great IBC it was. I just got together a couple of my favorite little moments, favorite pictures to look back once more on the fond memories from last month. We shared meals with the Flame dev team. We had some wonderful masterclasses with pretty much a full conference room of attendees with presentations by Andy Milkis, that name should be familiar, Finn Yeager, myself, Sanan Viral, who's in the chat as well, Josh Lawrence, Christoph Zapatel. All super informative, super well received, a great time all around. And then, of course, we went out with a bang with our little social. And if you want to see the rest of these pictures, they're on the forum. Just search for the IBC master thread, and you can live vicariously through these pictures. And, of course, it wouldn't have been possible without the sponsorships from AWS, Autodesk, HP, and LucidLink. So a big shout out to them for making it happen. And now, that was a quick one, wasn't it? We're back to talk about the show. I hope you're ready for this. This is a very exciting show. I have admittedly seen some of it before on a couple of different presentations, but I'm excited to see it again. And I have to welcome him here. He's not here on this side of the screen very often, but everyone, if you know Logic Live, you know my guest today, none other than Andy Milkis. Hello, Andy. Welcome to Logic Live. Oh, you're doing that on purpose, aren't you?
I am. I was doing that on purpose, yeah.
You just wanted me to say it, didn't you?
I'm never on, like you said, I'm never on this side of the screen. And so the opportunity to play Randy, I guess, in the Logic lore, I don't want to pass up. I do want to welcome your cat, Lydia, to the show. I'm guarantee you this will not be the last cat appearance. I have 3 here myself, and usually they always come in and out during the show.
They do, don't they?
She was let everyone know we're a well-represented community here.
That's funny. She was sleeping.
Pets of Logic, I believe we have a channel in Discord called Pets of Logic.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Well, thanks for having me today, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. It's great to see you. It's funny, we're not usually together in the same live stream, but here we are. It's happening.
Right.
I'm pretty excited for what you're going to show off. And I mentioned it, I've seen it before, but I just have to ask, kind of to set the scene and to get all of our viewers excited and interested. What made you want to be one of the people who's talking about AI on a show like this? Like, what got you interested? What got you, confident enough to feel like showing it off in front of a live audience?
Yeah, well, it's like the biggest thread on the forum, right? Is AI going to take our jobs? Like, there's like 5 new posts to that thread every single day. It is the #1 topic. And I know, like, just as a Flame artist, as a freelancer, and just even with like, some of the clients that I deal with, the question comes up all the time, and so when we were putting together the masterclass schedule for IBC, I thought it would be helpful to kind of show off the different ways that I've been using this stuff. For the last like 6 months or so, I've really kind of been immersing myself in the machine learning and AI tools that are out there. And I kind of thought it would be informative or helpful to maybe show some like real world use cases of how I found value in it, and also to try to like show the, you know, the difference between the hype and reality, I guess. You know, I think one of the things I said at IBC is that like I've been doing this for a really long time, and for as long as I've been a flame artist, there's been like the promise of like a one button keyer or a one button tracker or a one button object removal tool or whatever. And, you know, usually outside of like the strict prescribed guidelines of like the demo footage, they don't work. But it doesn't mean they're not valuable. You know, every tool has its strengths. And if you play to those strengths, you can find a lot of value in the tools. And so that's kind of the hypothesis or whatever, or the you know the one liner, the pitch for the presentation, you know, that I put together for IBC, and thought like, you know, maybe this is a good thing to run with. And I enjoyed putting it together, and I think everybody, you know, took something away from something really good from the presentation. And we'll see. I mean, that the wonderful thing about the comment, I can read I'm never on this side. I was saying to Jeff before, when we were doing like our testing and run through, I don't know that I've ever been a guest with like the software that we're using. And so now I have a new appreciation for the half-second delay of seeing myself right now. So.
Yeah, it's tough. I have to say that, I mean, I was thinking, I could have sworn you were a guest, but maybe it hasn't even happened yet. But yeah, it's okay. I have to catch up. I'm here to handle the comments for you, so don't you worry about that. But I'll manage that for you. But I have to say, selfishly, as like a flame artist, like obviously I'm a flame artist. I'm, you know, here hosting you on the show, but my day job is a flame artist. Really resonates with me what you're saying about the practical applications, because I think I'm positive that everyone who's watching right now has been bombarded with all of the AI. We can call it slop from like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is being famous for like AI slop of just like garbage, you know, and it's just a lot of hype. And when you say, and when you have here on your presentation, like practical applications to AI, that is like speaking my language as a flame artist, because I want to see how you're using it so I can potentially use it myself on the next job that I do. So it's great. It's so good.
Cool.
Nick Smith wants to know if this whole episode was made by AI.
It is. It actually was already made, and AI is changing it on the fly right now. In fact, that's not even Nick Smith. That is an AI chatbot impersonating Nick Smith, which is kind of the whole Black Mirror, through the looking glass nightmare that we're kind of living in right now. So.
That's true. I can confirm this. So
nothing but love for you, Nick.
We're diving in headfirst to how you are using AI and ML in Flame. What do you got for us first, Andy?
All right, let's. I guess if you could share my screen. God, it's so fun to be on the other side of this thing. So yeah, and again, if anybody, there you go, has any questions, please put them in the chat, and Jeff will relay them to me. I do want to share that before we start, last weekend history was made, and that Jeff Kyle was here at Logik World Headquarters, aka my guest room, and it was just fun to hang out with Jeff, and but I think the picture speaks for itself. Have you ever seen two happier people? AI couldn't make a picture that's this convincingly happy. But anyway, getting into the kind of the nuts and bolts here. Like I've said this on Logik many times. I've said it in many presentations. Like if there's one thing that's kind of been a constant in the almost 30 years I've been doing this, is that like the downward pressure of time and budget never goes away. Like we're always asked to do more for less, or do more with less, or do more in less time. And so like I guess, looking back on the career, it's like that seems to be something that always resonated with me. And I always tried to find ways to, get across the finish line faster, or get the grunt work out of the way faster, so I can add, the special touches that I as an artist can bring to a shot or a show. And so that's one of those kind of like things that kind of is you'll see it'll be a theme in the presentation here. So we're going to start simple, and then we're going to get more complicated, but the kind of like the same truths are constant, right? Let's just dive right in. I worked on a series of spots for Weight Watchers last year, or in this past year, and the whole premise behind the spots were they're going to showcase like behind the scenes, like a photo shoot of some of their clients. And, there would be testimonials and things like that. So, that this was like pitched, it was boarded, it was scripted, it was approved, they shot it, they edited it. And then when they showed the cut to whoever had to approve it, the only note that came back was, you're going to get rid of those flash frames, right? Which, just going to throw that out there. So I was asked by a client of mine, please look at the footage, please look at the shots. There were 32 things like this. How long will it take you to clean this up? And, I've done this a million times. We've all done this. If you've been doing this for a while, a million times. And you have to create a new frame. Like you have to reconstruct this frame, right? From usually the frame before and the frame after. And this right here just kind of shows this is a 50% mix between the frame before and the frame after. And I would always do this and figure out, what do I have to roto? What do I have to cut apart? What do I have to Frankenstein so that I can like shift and wedge, these two frames together to make a convincing in between. But I guess it was 2025.1 had come out, or 2026.1, whatever version of Flame introduced the new Morph tool came out, which was designed, like I think like the ideal use case for it was like a fluid morph. So I went ahead and figured, let me give this a shot. I think I bid like 3 days to do this because it was 32, And so here, I'll just, I'll do it live, Jeff. It's a live show, right? Anything can happen. So let me just get rid of this for a second.
Anything will happen.
And anything will happen. So what I did is I just, in the timeline here, I make a cut mark at the frame before the flash and then the frame after the flash, and open up a batch effect. And let's see, we grab the morph node out and hook this up here to to both inputs, and then set the, I actually think I need to do, I need to make this one frame longer. Look at that, Jeff. Something happened when doing it live. So here, let me go back in. Yes, I have 3 frames. So I just set the first frame to freeze and the last frame to freeze, right? And this is running on a MacBook Pro, an M3 MacBook Pro. And so I was figured, let me step forward and let the model do what the model's going to do. And it's done. It's done. Right?
As easy as that.
And I was like, as easy as that. I'm not gonna tell you how to run this show, Jeff. But if I were running the show, I would have played the fanfare sound effect for that. So that's going on in my mind. But there'll be plenty of opportunities to play but anyway, I was like, wait a minute. Since I built this as like a gap batch effect, and I didn't set any keyframes, I didn't do anything special. Is this going to work for like the next time there's a flash frame? So you copy and paste, and yeah, it worked, right? And so on, and so on, right? And what I thought could have taken, if like in the worst case scenario, 3 days to do, ended up taking, obviously a lot less than 3 days. This worked for most of the setups, and I was done. And I remember like talking to the dev guys from Autodesk about this, and this and the machine learning time warp node. And the takeaway from it was that like they trained the model to make an in between. And I was like, okay, this just radically changed my opinion of the morph tool. Like when it was first released, it was like, well, this is for fluid morphs. I was like, okay, everyone hates fluid morphs. This could make fluid morphs easier. But now I kind of look at it as, well, what if I need an in-between frame? And what are some examples of times where you need in-between frames that are generally like difficult to do manually? And so I have an example of one, right? This was a spot that I worked on where we had to do a screen comp. And I looked at this and I was like, okay, I got to put a screen in here, and that's fine. And like, I really wish the tracking marks weren't like giant pieces of tape right at the edges of the bezel. But hey, these things happen, and that's fine. But I can do this. And then the real problem revealed itself, that when the talent goes and touches the screen, the whole computer wobbles and vibrates, right? Like the screen shakes and wobbles. And so the actual like difficult ask that the client gave was, can you stop the screen from bouncing up and down? And I was like, okay. I struggled with this for a while. I ended up going into Synthesize and doing a camera track for this. And Synthesize is great. It gave me, good. It gave me a pretty good track. Anybody who knows anything about tracking in 3D will realize immediately I didn't orient my trackers up in world space correctly, but it didn't matter to me because I used this to stabilize the scene. And what I got was this, right? I got something that was stable. The screen's wobbling, but it was stable. And so I went and I looked at this and I was like, how am I going to solve this problem? And I was like, well, I went and counted the cadence for like the wobbling frames. Like, if I kind of rock back and forth here, what's the cadence in between like the screen rocking back and forth and back and forth? And I think I found it to be like 7 frames or something. And so I went in and did a here in the time warp tool with the time warp just set to mix. I just made keyframes for every time the screen was up, like facing camera, so it didn't wobble anymore. And then using the machine learning time warp, I slowed it back down to the speed it needed to be. And this is what I got. I guess I can just play it for you. But you see it doesn't wobble anymore. The screen's like flowing and everything, but that's going to be a reflection that I'm going to mix back. So I'm not too worried about that. But the one thing that was problematic for me with this render, like the one thing that like detail that the machine learning time warp didn't or had struggled with rather, were you can see them like these little rubber like bumpers on the lid of the laptop. They're getting all kind of flowy and warpy. So I knew I was going to have to fix that. But there's also a lighting change going on, right? So I went and took the where is it? There it is. I went and found a series of frames. I found frames 60, 70, 90, and 120. And I went and took those frames. I painted out whatever I needed to paint out. And then I took the matte and the fill and built like a daisy chain of morph nodes so that what I would get is this, right? And again, kind of like what I said a minute ago, what I needed here was clean in between frames. I needed to get like a good transition from 60 to 70 and 70 to 80 and 90 to 120 because there were all kinds of lighting changes going on as the talent's arm moves in front of the screen and everything. So after my experience with the flash frames, I realized, okay, this might be a great use for that morph tool. It's not a traditional morph, it's not necessarily going from one thing to another, but it was a perfect solution for this. And when I put when I kind of unstabilize this and put everything back together, you'll see. Once this comes back into frame, there we go. Let's frame that up properly. Whoops, I meant let's frame that up properly. Right? You get something smooth. Yep, no more shake. And it really all comes down to like understanding how the tool works, or maybe without anthropomorphizing the ML and AI stuff too much, understanding what it's seeing, what is the model trained on and what is it designed to do. And when you orient your brain around, to like that kind of thinking, then you do see use cases or value in these tools that are maybe outside of what like the advertised feature is, like fluid morphs, for example. Before I move on, were there any questions or anything in the chat?
No, I think everyone's just mesmerized by the great presentation.
Stunned, right? There's stunned silence.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think they are. I think it's, and I love how the first one built onto the second one. You learned a few things from the morph that you used it on this shot, which does not look like the kind of shot that would need a morph, but really great execution, I think.
Oh, that's how, and that's like for me, that's one of the that's like the Logik experience. Is like realizing is building one thing on. I'm so excited. I'm talking over myself. Is like seeing the value in the tool, understanding the use cases for how the tool was designed, and then understanding how the tool was designed, and then thinking of new use cases for it. So
Yeah,
I
and then the
wanted
best
to
part is
shift.
that like
Right.
you've shown your thing, and then someone can get inspired from what you've shown, and then they might do something that
Yeah,
you never thought of, and then they share it with the community, and that's how. And over the last 5 years, that's how Logic has become what it is. That we're all sharing this
that's
stuff
the
with
whole
each other.
thing. I've used this technique for like sheen going across a surface. I had to get rid of it. I had to get rid of a reflection of a tracking mark on top of a shiny tabletop. And like the, as the camera was moving, so like the light from, was kind of traveling like a sheen traveling across that reflective surface. And again, like morph tool for the win, it was able to create that in between of moving light. Whereas in the past, you'd be reconstructing this out of like, you'd have to make still frames and paint out the specular highlights and then create your own that are convincing. Try the morph tool, and make sure you stabilize first. I found that that the morph tool, the model is looking at the whole frame, and so the first time I tried doing this, I didn't do the step of like rowing out the matte and the fill, for the laptop screen, and I was getting artifacts because it was seeing other pixels in other parts of the frame. So definitely do things like region of interest and crop things down, and if you have to, roto things out and put them over black. Um, Again, once you understand how the model works or what it's seeing, then like you can figure out how to game the system a little bit. It's like I remember when the ML tools for Flame in the image node first came out, the ones that did like the face
Yeah,
recognition, the facial features, and we had the dev team. I think it was Francis was at the New York user group, and he pointed out that like the models were trained on people who were like standing upright. So if you had someone who was like laying on their side, it won't know where the eyebrows are. So take your footage, rotate it so that the person is up and down, is kind of vertical, and then the model will work because that's what it was trained on. And that was like an eye-opening thing for me. It's not that this thing sucks or that it doesn't work. It only knows what it knows, right? It's like
yeah,
how
and that's the kind of
certain
thing
things
where
only
the
work
more you
in
talk to
log versus
people,
linear,
yeah,
that kind of thing. So
exactly. But and then this
yeah,
kind of thing might not be intuitive to someone, and like they'll live their life thinking it doesn't work versus like talking to
yeah,
people and then finding out that it does work if you do this.
yep, bingo.
Before you move
Um,
on, I just have to make sure that you know and that the world knows that a single tear is rolling down Tim Hendricks's face after seeing what you've presented, and then Carrie B. Wilton has displayed that tear rolling down a face in the form of an emoji, and then Nick Smith, our friend Nick Smith, wants to let everyone know that he believes what we're showing is that we're a little bit like human mux inputs in the
yes,
knowledge sharing that we're doing. So that's the
I
latest
love
and
it.
greatest. So that just so that you know.
I love it. Thank you, friends. Um, Moving on, right? I worked on this shot for this documentary about George Washington, and the I don't know how much our audience at home remembers from their early education about U.S. history, but all of the stuff that George Washington did during the Revolutionary War happened in the winter of 1776, and so this was the footage I was given, and this shot needed to be winterized, and so I learned this fantastic technique from a flame artist here in New York named Mark French, who is an amazing artist and a genuinely amazing human being. On how to like make things look like how to add snow to a scene, essentially, right? So basically, it was like you cut a mat. I went to the 3D keyer and cut a mat for the like the grass, the brown grass, right? And when you look at it, you're like, well, this is terrible. It's noisy. This also is a dead giveaway for something that was shot in like H.264 codec and like a highly compressed codec. But it ended up not mattering really at all because what I was able to do was use this noise and everything to my advantage. And so just took the shot and loaded it into a straight up color correct node, dropped the saturation down to 15 and boosted the gain. And that's how I got some snow cover. And all that noise in the mat meant that like, oh, it must have been a blizzard for the last 3 days and the wind blew snow up here. It worked. But the one problem that I did have is that George and his horse were contaminated in the key, and that meant that they were going to have to be rotoed. And roto is what roto is. It can be therapeutic, but it's also very, very time consuming. And like I said, time, money, expectations. So Joel Osis did a post on the Logik forum about this tool called Sammy Roto. It's actually like a browser-based UI for running a local model called Matt Anything or Matt Anyone. I can't remember. But basically, it's free. You download it. It's open source. And it's like so many of the other matting tools that are out there, Runway and things like that, even like the Boris Effects Mat Assist. It's segmentation based. So you go ahead and click on the area that you want to have a mat for, right? And there are dots, green dots to include, red dots to exclude. And then you go to matting and say, run matting on based on segmentation, and you start to get a mat. And so, I mean, this is running locally on an M3 MacBook Pro. And look at like the detail you're getting in like the horse's hair, like the mane and everything. And this is not running in the cloud. It's a web UI for a model running locally. And the result I got back was great. I mean, where is it? Where is that mat? There it is. Like clearly this was trained on horses and cloaks or something like that, or maybe more importantly, flowing fabrics and hair, and I was able to use that mat to keep, everybody to protect George and his trusty white horse from, the contamination from the color correct. And then I used the same mat with some stock snow from Action VFX to create a little bit of, a winter scene. But one little anecdote about the Sammy Roto is like a couple months later, I tried this on a shot that had trees in big giant flower pots, like big, terracotta pots. Didn't work, So it kind of said to me that at least this version of the model was trained more on like people and animals and fabric and things like that, as opposed to maybe rigid objects. So again, kind of adding to that narrative of like understanding how the models work, what they're trained on, what their strengths and weaknesses are, can kind of tailor your approach to like, what tool I should use. Maybe something similar along this line, our good friend Josh Lawrence learned that like he was using the ML Mat Assist, same kind of AI ML matting in Boris Effects. It exists in both Mocha and Synthesize and Silhouette, right? But he was using Mocha and Synthesize, and he noticed that he was getting different results. And when he talked to the dev team, he found out that Mocha uses the ML Mat Assist to create splines, and Synthesize uses the ML Mat Assist to create bitmaps. And so depending on what you need, the same model can give you different results for different use cases. But if you didn't understand, how each app is using the model, you don't kind of get that benefit. So anyway, that's just me, piling more on about like, educating yourself about how these tools work, what they see, and that way you can kind of learn the strengths and weaknesses.
That's great. And I think to a point that you just made, is this roto that you got as good as getting roto the traditional method? No. But is this roto good enough for what you needed to do? Absolutely it is.
Yep. Yeah. And to be able to make that determination in like 2 minutes, is everything, because then you can kind of figure out, okay, is this something that I need to spend more time on or spend more money on or whatever? You can decide that quickly as opposed to going down the wrong path. Because once you go down that path, you're kind of committed. So
we do have a comment from George Marmudis, who's talking about the Sammy Roto options, and he said that you might be able to actually get some better results from Sammy Roto by changing the options to use a bigger model and the full resolution, I think. But I think in this case, like that might be true, but I guess in this case it worked for you. So yeah, but it's good.
Yeah, it's this is actually, there was something on the that thread on the forum about this, that like this was a 4K clip and I fed it a 4K clip. I didn't like downsize the clip to 720. This was just, at what level of detail is the model kind of running. And so the higher this goes, the longer it's going to take. And, everybody's experience is going to be different based on like the hardware you're running it on, the footage you're using. But I kind of followed Joel's lead in his little tutorial video of saying, like, just because it's a 4K clip doesn't mean 720p isn't going to work. It just in my use case here in this particular shot, it was enough detail, that kind of thing. So, but I certainly encourage you to like download Sammy Roto, try it. There's a new version out. This is an older version of the model, and see, run some tests, see if it works, see if like the increased processing time gets you the, an improved result. Like, is it worth it? That kind of thing. And maybe for a one-off shot, it doesn't matter. But if you've got like 20 mats that you need, it can all add up. So.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
Cool. But thank you, George. Moving on to Copycat. I know I've done at least one Logic Live where I talked about Copycat. It's my favorite feature in Nuke, and that's basically the only thing I know how to do in Nuke with any like real confidence is using Copycat. And Copycat is a way to train your own ML model to do something. You train your own inference model by showing it a series of like before and afters. And the classic use case that the Foundry shows off, they show a lot, but like I remember the initial ones were roto. If you feed it a series of frames and feed it perfect roto for those frames, as an example of like before and after, you can let Nuke train, and after whatever amount of time, a few hours, several hours, you'll get a trained inference node. You'll get a trained model back that you can use to generate your own roto, right? The equation though, and I remember talking about this when I did the Copycat Logic Live, is like, this is really an economies of scale tool, like if it's going to take 12 hours to train this model, and it's only going to take me 2 hours to do the roto, obviously I should just do the roto the old fashioned way, right? And that's kind of how I thought about Copycat for the longest time. Like, these are bespoke models that you're training. They're only going to work on the frames they've seen, and they're not going to work on anything else. And that's kind of how I thought about it for the longest time, until I got a second computer. And then here's an example, right? I had this shot where I had to get rid of the reflections in this guy's glasses. And we've all done this. Everybody's had to get rid of reflections in glasses if you've been a flame artist or a visual effects artist for long enough. And it's the same process. You have to kind of stabilize this. You got to paint out the reflections. You got to make clean frames of the eyes. If there's like blinking going on, you've got to make, you got to animate that yourself sometimes. It's a process. So I decided to give this shot a shot in Nuke with Copycat. And so let me tab over here to Nuke and show you. I went and took a look at the clip, and whoops, hold on. Oh, Jeff, we have our first live show thing.
It's
here.
A live show. Well, it is.
It's
Nuke,
a live show
after all, right? Like, Nuke isn't
I wasn't
famous
gonna
for
necessarily go there. Oh, you know what it is? Is I know exactly what it is. I tried to be smart and combine my two examples into one setup, but this example starts at like frame 1001 and this one starts at frame 1, and I think that's what's going on. So let me go ahead and, well, you know what? This is Nuke. I don't have to show this in Nuke. I can show it in Flame. So I went ahead and looked at the shot here, right? And I figured out, like, this is what you do with Copycat. Like, whoops, sorry. I went and looked at the shot and figured out, like, okay, what's the minimum number of frames I need to feed this tool so that it can extrapolate what it's learned and clean up the reflections on the entire shot, like on all the frames. There's 95 frames. And so I ended up, here it is. Yes, here it is. I ended up finding, I think it was like, I had it down to 13 or something like that, 14 frames. So hold that thought. It's thinking. I went and found these 14 frames, right? Like, here's him looking straight ahead. And then here's similar, but like the reflections have moved. And here the reflections have moved more. Here the eyes are closing, the head is turning down. So I thought that these frames here kind of accurately represented all the frames that might be seen in the shot. And then I just went into paint with the drag brush and just dragged my way here and just painted clean frames for those, whatever it was, 13 or 14 frames. And that became my data set for Copycat. And I let it train for I think it took 3 hours to train. And the result that I got back from those 3 hours of training was this.
Wow.
And so the calculus in my head was just okay, I'm working on this was a TV show, which means I have a number of shots to do, right? And my break even point is I have to get through X number of shots per day. Otherwise I'm not on average, in order to kind of meet my own internal goals for kind of staying on schedule and on budget. If I did this manually, it was going to take me, I don't know, 4 hours, 5 hours, even if it only took 3 hours, right? So instead, I spent about 15 or 20 minutes finding the frames and doing the drag brush and painting. And then while Nuke did the learning for the 3 hours, whatever, I moved on to other shots. Okay. So it would be almost like having someone else working here with me, only it was me and, another computer. But that's been a game changer for me, is being able to identify things that are time consuming, but can be turned into a bespoke machine learning tool, right? And let the computer do what the computer does. And then I can move on to tasks that it just can't do, and sometimes those tasks are things like the base conform, or setting up 100 shots, for the work that I have to do for the next few weeks or whatever it is. But kind of thinking about machine learning in that context and Copycat in that context has been game changing for me. Another example of doing this is I had to kind of create a shot to show this. I had footage, but I couldn't get permission to use it in time. But we've all been in this situation before. Okay, so imagine you have a shot here where there's somebody running in a field with grass, and you get this back from the colorist, and then the colorist also gives you this. Okay, which is and here's a pass for the grass. And don't worry, your flame artist can combine these two things together, right? And what they did here violates the rule, which is it's very easy to swing the color. It's very difficult to change the brightness. And I knew that if I tried to combine these two passes, I could never key it because there's too much this grass is the same color as her, the pants she's wearing, the shoes, it's in her hair, it's in her skin tones. And if you try to roto this, you're going to be riding a line, right? But, to try to make sure there's no dark edge or bright edge. And it's just super time consuming. So what I did is same thing. I found a representative subset of frames. I think it was 15 frames. And I just went and using roto and paint, I made 15 perfect frames. Okay. Like this. Right? Fed that into Copycat and let it train for the 3 hours or whatever it was. And the result that I got back was fantastic. There's going to be issues with motion blur, around the hands, but there's always issues with motion blur. Okay. So I'll go ahead and paint the 12 frames of motion blur that I need to fix. But it means I didn't have to roto linen pants, Jeff, as someone's running through a field where the pants are the same color as the ground. So again, another great use case, because the way to think about this, we always think about keying as I'm trying to identify a color and subtract it. That isn't how the models work. They're trying to turn A into B, and if you give it enough examples, you can get something that is just time saving. And again, this is a case where I could have spent all day rotoing this and still had issues. So,
Do you mean to tell me that rotoing linen pants isn't your idea of a nice Sunday, Andy?
It's more of a Thursday thing for me, Jeff.
Thursday. Okay.
But again, we grew up, we had different life experiences growing up.
Yeah.
So I don't hold that against you or anybody really,
That's great. We have a couple questions.
Linen pants are going to be the new thing. That's going to be Logic 2026 is going to be, we're going to add that to the merch store.
That'll be the new mug.
You know it. Linen pants will be the new mug.
So we have a couple
Um,
questions, the varying
Shoot.
levels of complexity. Tim, I can get them for you. Tim wants to know what's the other computer, and I think I'll use this as a preface to say it's a great excuse to like if you're thinking of upgrading a computer, you can just retire one to be your, in this case, a copycat computer. So in your case, what was that other computer? Like an old one you had?
I have two Linux machines, right? Right now, they're two Dell machines that are very similarly configured. In fact, I wonder, can I? I don't even know if the camera will pick them up, but they're over there in the Logic. And there's the by the way, there's Cat Andy that Tim Farrell made me. I look at it every day and it makes me smile.
Yeah. The
But
funny thing is,
yeah,
Tim
like
Farrell's the one who asked the question. So how
see,
isn't
it's
that
almost like
great?
we scripted this. But yeah, it's a second Linux machine that has a 6000 card in it, and I mean I had gotten a second machine as a backup, in case I had a problem with the first one, or I'd also gotten it because there are times where I work on like NDA projects where like the as part of the requirements your machine has to be off the internet, so I needed a machine that was going to be on the internet. But lots of times that second machine just sits around, like it's not even powered on, and so the more AI and ML stuff I'm doing, the more use cases I'm finding for that hardware that's just sitting around. So
That's great. Hardave just wanted to confirm, and I think I can do this one. How did you crop and then put back the 650 by 650 size? You were the one who showed me your region of interest setup, and I'll use this as a way to pitch the fact that the Logic Discord has a toolbox channel, and I actually uploaded the region of interest setup that you can pull from there to take a look. And then the best part, Andy, is that Fred Warren is in the chat, and he responded to Hardave. So let's say hello to Fred to let him know that there was an improvement to that workflow that was updated in 2025. So isn't that great? Isn't that great? So now
thank you,
here's
Fred.
the hard hitting question from Philippe Leridin. Could this have been done with Tunit? We've brought up
Yes,
Tunit.
that's what Tiago Porto has gifted to the community, and I haven't tried this with that, but in principle, yes, it's the same basic principle. The TueNet is, it's like an inference based um, tool where you're training it on a data set of before and after pictures. But I think one of the things I really should try is running the same test, because I have the same file, and maybe do like benchmarks on it, not just for like quality, but then to see like performance wise.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it could be
in
great
principle, Philippe, yeah,
for us flame
it's
artists.
the same concept.
For us flame artists who might not have a license of Nuke, since that is a bit of a hefty price tag, the Tunit could be a
Yeah,
great solution if that's like the only thing you're using in Nuke. So who knows?
yeah. And the one thing I don't know, but it might be the case, I'm sure there are people who know, is does TueNet allow you to, does it generate a ONNX inference file? Like, can you then load that into Flame and do your inferencing in Flame? I'm not 100% sure. Like, I know the models, the nodes that get made in Nuke for Copycat, you cannot load those into the inference node in Flame. They're not ONNX compatible. So it could be that's another thing that Tiago's does. So
Good stuff. That's our questions. Let's keep on moving on.
keep on keeping on, as they say.
They
All
do say
right.
that.
Next up, right? I had this shot here that I worked on for a movie, and the first thing that was asked of me was like, "Can we change the name of the high school?" Of course, we can do that. We're flame artists. The second request was, "Can it look like it snowed 3 days ago?" And so I knew that just given my abilities as a fine artist, I'm a fine artist, but I'm not a fine artist. Like I can't paint convincing snow from 3 days ago, and the technique from the George Washington shot wouldn't work. So this to me was a great use case for Photoshop. And I have to give what I believe, some of this might get lost in the translation from the original German, but I have to give Finn Yeager mad props because he totally solved a color problem that I had. I was exporting EXRs from linear EXRs from Flame to Photoshop to do this work. And no matter what I did, it was like Photoshop tried to help, and it created like a color space problem. And Finn was like, "Yeah, just export it from Flame as a 16-bit TIFF. You'll be fine." And I can't impersonate Finn, but you totally heard that in Finn's voice. I know everybody out there in Logic Land heard that. So this was one of those cases where like Photoshop's Gen AI was awesome because I could like draw a mask around, or draw a selection around an area and type in a prompt that says, add a little bit of melted snow, you know, and I get like this. You get wonderful option. Whoops, I got the wrong layer selected. You get wonderful options, you know. And I just kind of did this selectively for different parts of the image until I found something that I liked, and you know, and then I was good to go. But I learned something in this process, right? This was all great on the ground. I wanted to add some snow on the windowsills. And when I did that, I realized that as awesome as this is, it's changing the building. All right. This is one of those things with Gen AI, you know, no matter, some of the models are better than others. Some of them have better like stability parameters or whatever. There's the potential to get back something completely different than what you submitted. Right. But I didn't let that bother me because I was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep going and I'll just deal with the snow in Flame. And I'll show you that in a second. But I had to get rid of some wires. I did that while I was here too. Figured, hey, while I'm in Photoshop. And then I needed to get rid of this type here. And so great prompt. It was remove the text, but keep the stone building looking just as weathered, right? And like that would have taken me forever to kind of like paint with the clone tool and drag and try to get like, you know, weathered looking marble or something, you know. But like if you think about it, I'm sure Adobe has millions and millions of examples of weathered looking marble, right? So there you go. And bricks. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's
So
not a
I
lot
just,
of other marble in that scene. Like, it's a very small region, so that's like an important
yeah,
detail. Like this Gen AI execution, like I don't know where you clone from. Even it's that would be hard.
right. Or I'd find some piece of stock, or maybe I'd
Hmm.
use like substance, one of the substance textures of marble, and then try to paint my way to, you know, something that matched better. But this, thank you. You know what I mean? Now I can move on to the hard stuff, which was like, I could not, trust me. I tried to get Gen AI to change the type on here and it gave me back, I don't know if it was Klingon or like what, it just was not, it was just not. So I loaded this into Flame. And what I ended up doing was a Luma key for the snow, right? And made a matte for the snow. That's another thing with Gen AI. You don't get a matte. Like the mattes that came out of Photoshop were the areas I selected. So it's not like you get a matte for the stuff that's generated, right? So I just did a Luma matte and a little G mask to kind of protect the parts of the building. And if I go all the way to the end here, you can see, look at that. Thinking. There we go. Right? And I'm in Flame. So I was able to go in and do a little bit of color correcting and add a little bit of, you know, like a coolness or whatever to the white of the snow to get everything to kind of sit in there properly. I took care of the name in a very old school way. The first thing I did was I just kind of typed it up and then ended up like, here you go. Anybody who's ever, I just like copied and pasted. You know, I found the letters. Like all these letters here are made from the letters like in school, you know, except for little bits that I painted because I couldn't find a font that matched perfectly. So I did this in a very old school Flame way. You know, like these are each individual letter is its own layer in action. So and the last thing was I needed a mat for the kids that cross in front of the snow that I had on the ground. And so I loaded the shot into Sammy Roto and tried to like segment and pick every one of the kids, like every one of these like children that crossed,
Wow.
and it could not do it. Like after like two kids, after two, I guess it would be objects. It wouldn't necessarily be people. It fell apart. It was more than the model could handle. So that was something that I learned. So I ended up doing it in like two different parts, the people on the left and the people on the right, just to learn the limitations of the model. So, and that's how I solved making it look like it snowed 3 days ago at Jefferson Middle School.
That is a good one,
But
Andy. We have one. We had a question from Mark Wellington that I think I answered, so you can just say yes or no. He wants to know if you did this on one frame and then repeated it in Flame with added back grain. I thought the answer was yes, so I said yes.
yeah, yep, this was all
And
one frame.
and then we have a bit of a historic occasion. I don't think Fred Warren has ever asked a question on Logic Live.
Oh my God.
Fred Warren wants to ask you, does, and maybe this is a hard question, does production
Oh,
let
no, it's
you
an easy question.
does production let you use these ML and AI tools, or does it have to be vetted through them? Do they have to approve it before you use it?
That depends on the production, but by and large, it's been vetted. Like if the place has a license of Creative Cloud, then you're allowed to do whatever with Creative Cloud, like that kind of thing. But I make it a habit of, before I do anything AI or ML, I will ask whoever I'm working for, is that okay, or do what's your AI policy, essentially, and then we kind of go from there.
Great, that makes sense. Excellent.
Yeah. Wow, it's already 2:51. We're going to go long today, Jeff. Is that all right?
Let me check with the higher ups to see if they'll okay it.
With management, I have a couple more, and I'll that I can kind of barrel through, because I think I've laid the groundwork here.
Yeah, I have to say that some of this later stuff, because I happen to have seen this before. This later stuff is like, in my mind, this is the good stuff, So I don't know.
Okay,
take
great.
as long as you need. This is good.
Thank you. So I had some driving shots to work on, and thankfully, the production did what they are supposed to do. They had interactive lighting on the car and all kinds of stuff, which is great, right? The issue was, this is what they gave me. This is the only thing they shot as a background plate, is 18 frames of whatever's going on here. Okay. And so for the first shot, I was like, you know what? I only need 32. I went into machine learning time warp. I slowed this down to 32 frames. This is going to be racked out of focus and everything, and great. It'll be fine, and if Joel Osis is out there somewhere, dude, I have your additive keyer setup that you showed us in New York like years and years ago. I have it saved, and I still use your additive keyer setup. You can see bits and pieces of it here, but using Joel's additive keyer, I did something that, it got approved. It looks great. It got approved. But then the next shot came up, the next driving shot came up, and this one, they didn't have any additional background. Like they had nothing, they had no new shot that I could use. But the performance is different, right? Like they're turning in a different direction. So I turned to Gen AI, right? And the first thing I did was, like, I was using ComfyUI, or ComfyUI rather. And I was like, I have it here. I used ComfyUI and one of these like image to video workflows, and loaded this image in, and it only worked at 960 by 540. But again, this is all going to be rack focused out, so who cares? And then I did my best to give it a prompt, and
oh, Andy, I'm gonna do something that you've done. Could you zoom in on that prompt for me?
Oh yes, absolutely, sure. Thank you. Right. View from the rear window of a moving car looking backwards, and I swear to you, this is not the first time I typed this prompt. I was trying to get what I wanted. And let me show you just some of the renders that I got out of this, because they're great. There we go. Yes. Right. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. In fact, maybe I should do will these play smoother? Yeah, the quick times will play smoother. And, like some of this is just wild. But the thing that was really fascinating was, no matter how I typed this, I couldn't get the camera this is looking out the front windshield of the car. This isn't looking out the back, right? I tried and tried and tried and prompted and prompted and tried, and I could not get it to go in the other direction, right? So I was like, all right, maybe this particular model was never trained on cameras going backwards or something. I don't know. So once I settled on something that had like and this is like Inception level madness going on here, you know. But once I got something that was working for me, you know, going forwards, I just reversed it and went backwards. But I do want to show you one thing. I tried loading this into Sora, you know, which is OpenAI's tool, and you know, that's one thing I did. I don't have the prompt open, but one of the things I've been doing with all of my AI work, and this is an amazing technique, is like, or useful technique, is take your image, right? Take your source image like this and feed it to ChatGPT or Claude or, you know, Gemini or whatever, and ask it what it sees. And then ask it to frame its response, formatted as a prompt for the model that you're going to use for your either image or video generation. And that was like life-changing for me, because I realized all the things I was doing wrong. You know, it's like you're trying to explain something to a model that's been trained a certain way, and it describes certain things. You know, I was describing this as like a suburban road with at night with pockets of light and darkness or whatever, and the orange signs. And you know, once I got back the proper wording, you know, that the wording you use in the prompt is everything in terms of what you're going to get back from the model. So that was a great technique.
It's
But I
really
do need
good.
to show
That's like a core. That's like a core machine learning concept that you learned.
yeah.
That it's like I just have to like call it out because I've heard it before, and I've heard you mention it, and I've heard other people mention it. It's not intuitive.
Mhm.
Like knowing what you
No.
just said, it's not intuitive. But knowing to do that, as you said, it changes everything.
Yeah, totally. And like it would be like both my kids went to college for music. They were music students. And so if I need to understand something, you know, from a music theory perspective, I'll ask them. You know, they'll know the words. To me, it'll just be like, well, that sounded upbeat. You know what I mean? So like, because I don't have a music background. So it's just a similar kind of paradigm. But I fed that frame to ChatGPT and said to me, you know, tell me what you see. And then I fed that prompt into Sora. And the first thing it gave me was this, you know, which is like interesting. It didn't match stylistically with like for continuity purposes. It didn't match. I needed to start with an image that they actually shot so that it, you know, it matched everything else that was shot. But my favorite of all the Sora generations was this, you know, like, what's this, man? Thank you. Right. I would watch a whole movie about this, man. This is like a fever dream, you know? I love it.
I
Anyway,
don't use sound effects lightly, but that warranted a sound effect, I believe.
that was used, chef's kiss, no notes. But anyway, I loaded that back into Flame, the render that I got. And then I think I ended up in action because there's a turn involved. Is it here? Is it here? Yes, it's here. I ended up just like taking the same clip and you know, flipping it, and they're just, you know, parented to the same axis. But the end result was, you know, I got the right background. I got the right blobs of bokeh. You know what I mean? Like, but again, there was a use case. You know, it's like Gen AI, you know, image to video might not give you something that matches perfectly, but if this is all you really need it for, then, you know, you're done. You know, you don't have to try to take a piece of stock footage that was never designed to work like this and shoehorn it in, and pray that it passes the squint test, you know? So
Yeah, that's great. This is great applications right here.
I want to show you one more image to video thing that ended up not working, but it was so informative, right? I had this shot here of this kid in front of a microphone, and this was shot on Steadicam, and you can see that the Steadicam operator like either tripped or had to step over something. And the VFX request was, can you stabilize this shot, right? And I looked at it and went like, okay, well, I need to do some tests because there are so many layers of depth going on that, like, what do you stabilize? If I stabilize the kid, the microphone's going to move. The move of the microphone is going to be more exaggerated. if I stabilize the first row of people, then the kid, you can't do this with like a 1-point stabilize. Like you're probably going to have to go roto everything, rip it apart, stabilize everything, put it back together and rebuild it. Right. And that of course has a cost associated with it. But I was like, let me try the Gen AI route. There's a technique called first frame, last frame, or first frame, last frame image generation. And so I found a ComfyUI model and I picked like the frame before the bump and the frame after the bump. And I prompted it with like, please give me a smooth transition from the start frame to the end frame. Okay. And so these were like, this was the first result that I got. And I did it on the rough cut. That's what all the watermarks are for. But I was like, oh shit, the bump's gone. Oh, that's amazing. Problem solved. But then I looked at it some more and I was like, this guy with the eye patch is dancing, and like in the plate, he is not dancing. And the more iterations I ran, I was like, there was some, I think it's down here, where like this kid's singing now, where he never sang, And again, like what it reinforced with me is like, okay, the model only knows what it knows. It looked at this and it's like, well, I see a person and I see a microphone. And typically people either speak or sing when they're behind a microphone, right? So like, it's totally normal that when it's inventing these frames, this is one of the infinite number of possibilities it would come up with. But what it said to me loud and clear was like, okay, this is something that I have to remember about Gen AI, is that it isn't like a morph from frame A to frame B. This is inventing new frames. And there were other issues that, you usually get with Gen AI. There were like, you can see the patterns in the hair and then, anything on the zipper was a mess. So I ended up having to do this, in a more traditional fashion, but this was a great like learning experience to just see kind of what this whole paradigm is about. But the last thing that I wanted to show is I worked on something not that long ago that it was a green screen like car shot, right? It was a shot inside a car with green screen out the windshield. And a background plate was shot for it. And that was great, because it was the right environment and everything. And in the offline, the editor just did like an A over B. The editor just kind of put the foreground over the background and let it go, which is all they're supposed to do. That's fine. We get those elements as flame artists and we start to look at it, right? And we're like, okay, where's the horizon, right? Like, how should I really orient this so it's accurate, in space? And we did that and showed it, as for dailies or work in progress or whatever. And the client freaked out. Why did you change my shot? I can't see the sidewalk anymore or something. And I want to see the sidewalk. And, you're now in that position that every compositor has been in, where you need to turn to your client and explain that like what they like isn't real or isn't accurate, and that's never a great conversation to have. Okay. But, we figured out, we solved the problem, but that stuck with me. And so I went and I found this piece of stock footage, right? And I was like, this is great, because what the hell's going on here? Like, where are these people? Where's the ground? Is this like an incline like set that they were shot on? Or is the camera up high? If the camera's up high, why are these people? And this is a problem that, as flame artists, we need to solve. And lots of times you're given a background frame that doesn't work and you have to figure it out, right? So I took this and I fed it again. I was using Comfy, but I was just using Comfy as like for the Google Gemini API. So I could use like Nano Banana. And I was like, I wonder if this could generate a background for me that solved that problem, right? And so I asked it, can you have these people standing in the bleachers at a sports stadium? Okay. And so the results that it gave me back were nothing short of awesome. I got this. Actually, I should probably do like a side-by-side. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So here's the frame, right, that I gave it. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not the frame. Let me find the frame. There we go. There's the frame that I gave it, essentially, right? And then I was like, please put these people in a sports stadium. And it did, but it changed everything, right? like everybody's looking in a different direction, and I don't know why. These people who are above the people behind them are now below. I mean, I understand why. The model's trying to obey the laws of physics that it's been taught and all that kind of stuff. But like um, the results I got back were like half the people went to the bathroom, I guess. I don't know, like they're gone. It again reinforced that Gen AI, while it can be amazing, can create all kinds of problems. This guy lost a foot, or he what are they apparated, in like in Harry Potter world, and his foot is in another dimension. I don't know. So I was like, let me try this experiment just in a different context, okay? And I said, hey, can you instead? The prompt was, can you give me background examples where, like, let's say these people are in the mountains of Switzerland at golden hour, right? And I got this stuff, and like it's great, except that of course it has the same like problems. It's changing the people. So, but it solves a big problem for me, Jeff, and that is it figured out where the horizon is, what the background should be. It figured out those problems of like what background would work for people configured like this. And so I was able to generate this, and then I took this same frame and fed it back into Gemini, Nano Banana or whatever, with the prompt, can you remove the 6 people that are in the foreground? And I got, where did it go? I think it was this. I got this. Yeah. Right. So, in this case, I was able to show, or I mean, this is theoretical, but I would be able to show my client a background frame that will work. All right. But I'm not limited by any of the, inherent challenges that the Gen AI can give you. So let me just go back to one up view, and I'll show you. So what I did is okay, now I have a background. Whoops. Did I mention I have all these apps open on my MacBook Pro? I have this background here, and I even went and I used AI to upscale it. So now it's in 4K like it needs to be. And but I'm going to solve this problem the way I always do. I'm going to composite, but I'm going to use what I got from Gen AI as a guide, okay? Because it figured out all the things that I have to try to guess as a compositor. Like, where's the horizon, right? What's the color temperature? Like, what do I have to do to the foreground to make it match the background? This thing has been trained on millions of, far more pictures than I would ever see in my lifetime. And so I was able to take John Ashby. I saw you there in the chat, man. I was able to take your blessing of a tool here, AFX reverse grade, and then like sample the white point values and black point values from what I got out of Gemini, and I get this. Right? So now these people are in the right color space, or the right color temperature rather, for the background. And then I just solved this the way I always solve this, right? This is a comp. I even went and, did I do what frame is on? Frame 1. I even went and painted some grass. So that way the shoes, would be obscured by the grass a little bit. Like, anyway, there's a long way to go to get this over the finish line. But what I really wanted to show was like, there's value in using some of these Gen AI tools to help you solve traditional compositing problems, without having to deal with either the legality or the fact that like they're gonna create new frames, right? And anything you can do to get yourself, like I said, we're fighting that battle between of budget and schedule and time and everything, and so. I have been like loving using this for like this use case for Gen AI to get me something that, to solve those kind of problems, or only present me with options that will work. I mean, you can also take, I don't have an example to show, but there are models out there where you can send it an image and then say like, man, my client loves this piece of stock or this background image, but the camera angle's too low. Well, you can type a prompt that says, please raise the camera 6 feet or something, and you'll get a new angle, So, and then still composite it traditionally, because your client's going to want to make the little tweaks and changes that you're never going to be able to get reliably if you like reprompt. So
This is a great use case, and it really goes back to what you were talking about before, where it might be intuitive to think, just like the one-click keying solutions. Oh, I ran this shot through AI and it looked terrible. AI doesn't work. But here you are presenting, no, like, well, if you use it this way and this way, you can get value out of it. And I love that. I think that's great.
Yeah, totally. And full disclosure, I prepared this presentation in the beginning of September, and then I did it again a couple of weeks ago for a VES event. And things have already changed. Like, there are things I will do differently because the tools have changed, or I've learned new tools and techniques. And I was saying to Jeff during like the little pre-show, I haven't been this excited about doing visual effects work in a long time. Like it's mind blowing. Like there's so much to learn to kind of figure out how to be on the, not so much, I mean, I guess on the leading edge, but being like, this is, I don't know where this is going, right? No one does, but this is here. So how can we use this to kind of its advantage and still, make sure that we as flame artists have value in the process. So that, we're still important. So
I think that's the right perspective to have. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me. It resonates with me for sure. A couple questions and statements for you that are going to be good. The first one will be from George Marmudis again, just kind of giving an insight and a potential pathway. Oops, I have an old one up. Important to keep you might add a prompt that says it's important to keep the people and posture, camera angle the same. He says that he's had experience where it works well in Runway if you write that on the prompt. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, George, I've had good experiences with that as well. Not every generation is going to respect those rules in the prompt, but a lot of them do. Or you're close enough that you can fix it. That's another thing I've learned with in terms of what's the value of is AI going to steal my job? Like that it says in the forum all the time. What's the value of being a flame artist? Value of being a flame artist is knowing when to stop. Okay, like knowing like this is as far as AI is going to take me, and it's fine. Like I can get the rest of the way with the tools and techniques that I know. And it certainly has gotten me up to a point. So thank you for that, George. That's a really important thing. So.
We have another interesting statement from our friend Valentin Andreev that you'll like this. He recognized the green screen footage you showed, and he said he was the one who cleaned it up to then send it to the vendor that sold the green screen footage. So how cool is that?
Thank you, Val.
Fun little anecdote. And so now we have a question from Alpert Octay, our friend Alpert. And again, another hard one. I save the hard ones for last. He really just wants to know if you have experienced a difference in a paid ML service versus some of the free models that you find on Comfy. It's probably a hard question just because there's so much out there. And like, what free model did you choose? There's just, of the free models and of the paid models, there's so many options. But in your experience, have you seen that the paid ones are better than the free ones?
For Alper, I'll tell you that the only experience, like real world experience I have with that is with image generation. So I haven't tried this yet with any of the video stuff. But as far as image generation, using Nano Banana or Gemini has been so much better than any of the open source models I've tried. And like Jeff said, I haven't tried them all or enough of them to have like a truly accurate data set. But Gemini has been great. And then there's another one called, oh my God, Seedream, which can do up to 2.5K in terms of like renders. And if you access these through ComfyUI, each image generation costs 3 cents. So, and also the image, of course, you're not running it local, you're running it on the cloud, and that has its own set of circumstances. But like for 3 cents, I could do 100 of them. It's $3. That's fine. Yeah, I've gotten much better results with the paid services in image generation so far.
We have one other question that just came in, hot off the presses, from our friend Tim Hendricks, who wants to know if you have trouble with 8-bit limitations. Have you ever run into any 8-bit limitations? And have you heard of any models that might help to get the bit depth higher yet? Have you heard of any of that?
Yeah, this came up during one of our many chats out at IBC. And I think it was also been on the forum. I think maybe Chris Noeller might have some experience with this, but there are models that'll do like SDR to HDR conversions, and so I think that there are probably some solutions out there, but I ran into that, Tim, with like that the snow in that shot that I showed there, where it was like, this is all I'm going to get out of it. And so I just, because it was a small little element, I think I was able to get away with it. Like it didn't create like a problem, but that certainly is something to consider when you try to evaluate what tools or models are best for you. But definitely check the forum on that.
Andy, this was a great show. I think you've done it. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the amazing
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, you'll have to.
And
come
I got to
back
say,
again.
like, yes, I'll have to come back again. I just want to thank you, Jeff, for all that you're doing for Logik. Jeff was out with us at IBC, and he's he's the voice of like the Flame Learning Channel videos, and we're actively right now trying to expand the stuff that we have in Logik Academy Pro, and Jeff is a huge force behind all that stuff. So thank you, man, for all that you're doing for the community. So.
Well, I appreciate that. This is the community that you built, so I'm just happy to be a part of it as well. So thank you.
I'm stood on the shoulders of giants, but thank you, man.
And on that, I guess we'll why don't we give some stuff away? How about that? It's your favorite part of the show, right? Everyone's favorite part of the show. But
I guess music.
We'll do a giveaway, and then we'll do some closing presentations, and then we'll see you on the patrons chat a little bit later, but pretty soon here. So thank you. Thanks again for being here. And we'll talk to you again very soon. Bye.
Happy Sunday, everybody.
So now it is, I'm a little bit off center. Prize time. Everyone's favorite part of the show. What are we giving away, you ask? I talked to Andy before the show, and we learned that we had more signups than ever before. So we've concluded that we'll just double all of the prizes today. So good luck to everybody. And so these first two prizes, we're going to give away 1 month each of Logik Academy Pro. So our first winner for 1 month of Logik Academy Pro is none other than Chris Nollert. Congratulations. Let's keep this moving. Who else is getting 1 month of Logik Academy Pro? It's none other than Mache Koramaki. Congratulations. And now the email that I sent out for this show talked about giving away Boris FX optics, but Andy just told me that it wasn't good enough and that we needed to give away all of the Boris FX suite. So we're actually giving away 1 month of the Boris FX full suite, 2 of those, which is pretty sweet. So good luck to the next 2 winners here. Who will it be? It's Miriam, our friend Miriam, won 1 month of Boris FX. Congratulations, Miriam. And we're giving away one more 1 month. Who's it going to be, you ask? Well, we're seconds away from seeing that it's Dennis Hughes. Congratulations. And that is our giveaway. Amazing. Let's see. We have just a couple of closing announcements just to get through before we're out of here. Coming up on Logik Live. Will it come up? Oh, there we are. We have actually a plethora of shows, as they say, thanks to my guest, Andy Milkis, for going ham on the scheduling. So thank you for that. And of course, some of these dates are subject to change, as they often do. But penciling in up next, we're planning on saying hello to our friends on the Autodesk Flame dev team to see what they have to say. That's November 2nd. All of these are, I guess I didn't write this on the sheet, sorry. It's Sunday at 2 p.m., as usual. So dev team on November 2nd. The week after that, we have Phil Mann coming back to show off some of the updates to the Logik project. Oh my God. It's not there. It's out of order. I'm just going to do all of them and we'll just talk through. There we go. Week after that, we have Christoph Zapatel and Marco Paolini to talk about the latest and greatest from Silhouette. All the new exciting features there. And we're continuing the IBC Masterclass hype train by inviting Sinan Viral on for him to talk about what he shared with us about particles. So that's, I guess the dates are on the screen. I don't need to say them out loud, but there they are. That's our upcoming Logik Lives. We have a full calendar here. And before we go, I can't finish up without saying a big thank you to the people who make this show right here a reality, and that's our Patreon patrons. A big thank you to everyone on the list here. We're clocking in at 146 patrons as of this morning. Thank you very much to all the patrons. If you would like to support what we're doing here on Logik Live, get access to things like the patrons Q&A, like we do after just about every show, you can head over to patreon.com/LogikTV and support for as little as $5 a month. We have a very active forum, forum.logik.tv. We have a Discord for our chats and hangouts informally. Logik Live has 2,620 subscribers on YouTube, so I am contractually obligated to ask you to press the subscribe button because we like to see the number go up. We have a merch store if you are merch inclined. Stay tuned for the linen mug, potentially. Boris FX is a wonderful sponsor of Logik Live, and if you'd like to save 15% of all of their offerings, you can visit logik.tv/BorisFX and click on those affiliate links if you like deals and things like Mocha or Sapphire or Synthesize and more. And that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to Andy for coming on and showing all things AI ML. Andy has some extra material to show off at the patrons chat, so hope to see you all there and answer any questions we didn't have time to get to during the show. But for now, thank you to everyone who's here. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything, and I will see you next time on Logik Live.